Okay, peeps, thought I'd do a quick review on the 2021 KTM 300XC. I've reviewed basically all the TPIs since the first TE and XCW 250s came out. This is my 7th TPI that I've had. Currently got that one which I ride every day. That's a 2020. I've done the review on that one. This one is basically about a week, 2 weeks old. Bought it for my partner to ride. She's a bit shorter, so we've adjusted the suspension down. The great thing about the XC as opposed to the XCW is it's got air forks. There's supposedly not really any changes on the 2021 other than bold new graphics and different suspension settings. But I'm just going to cover what's really is different on the bike than the 2020 model. For a start, yes, the graphics are different. Sort of quite like them. The back ones here are actually stickers on here as well, but the rest of these ones are actually built into the plastics, which makes them last a little bit longer. So the graphics are different. The suspension's a little different as well. It's definitely plusher through the stroke than what the 2020 XC300 was. The 2020 is a lot plusher than the previous models on the air forks. They had, in the past, I'd put the MX Tech mid-valve kit in to get rid of that mid-range, mid-stroke harshness, but the 2020 is better. The 2021 is way better. Even though I've got this one set up pretty soft and pretty low because, as I say, my partner, she's only 5'4" or something like that, so not very tall. So it's just softer. I haven't checked the clickers. I haven't checked to see what the settings are. But out of the box, it was softer, which suits her just fine. Great for sort of preloading and jumping things with my weight on it. Just sort of a little bit better. They've revised the settings, and that's what they really did do. So that's great. Now, aside from that, there was supposed to be not really any differences. Of course, we've dropped the seat here down. We've hollowed it out a little bit. But we've put electric fan on. We changed the clutch lever to one that's just a little, it's got a nicer feel of the lever itself. It's got a nicer feel. Electric fan. We've put the Midas tyres on, the 454 double greens. Up here in Canada in winter, you really need a very soft tyre. We've put heated grips on. We're running the Tusk heated grips, which I reviewed in another video. They work great. They come with a really good wiring harness. In fact, with this wiring harness, what I've done is in behind the number plate here, I've used the wiring that comes with the Tusk grips to also run the switch for the electric fan. Because on the XC, as opposed to the XCW, there's no wiring for the electric fan. It's not plug and play like it is on the XCW, which just requires the fan to be installed, plugged in, and then a relay put in to the airbox, by the airbox. But one thing that's apparent on the 2021 as opposed to the 2020 is it seems to have quite a bit more power straight off idle. So immediately when you get on the throttle, it seems to be a bit smoother and just seems to have more power straight off idle. I haven't had to adjust the power valve on this one yet, but then again, I haven't really ridden it enough to get an idea whether it's got that mid-range hesitation like a lot of the other ones have. But they do seem to have tuned it slightly differently. It's just got that extra little bit of kick straight off idle, which is really interesting because they never really mentioned that they were doing anything with that. We run the Enduro.rocks brake pedal. Of course, being a girl and being shorter, she's got much shorter feet. This brings the brake pedal quite a bit further back so you can reach it. I'm a size 11.5 foot or 45 euro. And I run one as well because it makes it much easier to use that rear brake. It's a very popular product. It can be found on our website, enduro.rocks. Other than that, the bike is the same. One problem that I've noticed with the 2020s and 2021s, and it's a problem not so much of a problem for me, I haven't busted one. I know some other riders who have busted them, and I've figured out what they did wrong. In the past, the seats were generally bolted either to the subframe or right near the subframe. On these ones, if you flip the bike over, you actually snap the back fender off. It's mounted on in 4 places. You snap that off, you break the seat in half, and the seat is bolted to the plastics on the back. So I'm going to pull the seat off here. I've unbolted it already. And I know it's a bit grubby under here, but this is where the seat bolts through. Big long bolt on the side here that goes through to here, and then a bolt here that just goes through to hold the plastic on. Now what ends up happening is if you flip the bike over, and it grabs the ground about here, it'll snap the whole thing off. It'll snap it off from this bolt, the seat will end up breaking in half through about here, which doesn't really matter. It's just bolt it back down again. But it's also kept on with here and here. So it'll end up ripping these bolts out. Now, not a problem for me. Very seldom. I can't even remember the last time I flipped a bike. But if you've got more novice riders and they're jumping on these bikes and they're pretty peppy, it wouldn't be a bad idea just to order a few more back fenders for the bike and have them sitting here. You can always put them on when you go to sell the bike if you don't use them up. But if one of the back fenders gets snapped off, you're going to have troubles tying the bike back together so you can continue riding for a weekend. So very much recommend buying a few spare fenders. They're actually hard to get from some places at the moment because of the COVIDs, and delivery hasn't been all that reliable on them, but they're around about $22 US. Buy a few, have them, and then you can just replace them if they snap off. If you've got novice riders riding the bike where they're tending to flip the bikes. Now, other problem, always have to fix this on the bikes. I made the mistake of not replacing this hose when I first got the bike and set it up last week, because you've actually got to cut the inner hose clamp off. It's crimped on, and you've got to take the tank off, of course, take the radiator off, and you've got to cut the hose clamp off, and then you've got to replace this hose. The hose on the factory hose is very weak, and what happens if the radiator moves around a little bit and it's getting shoved, the radiator hose comes back, and I'll try and get my finger in here to show you. It comes back and it hits this bolt here, and it actually caves the radiator pipe on. It puts like a V shape into the hose, the pipe, the metal pipe off the radiator, which of course the hose isn't going to seal in that. And it will actually, that bolt there will cut the hose through. So what I recommend doing, as soon as you get the bike and you're putting your electric fan and stuff on, drain the coolant out, pull the radiator off, and replace it with a piece of silicone hose. It's only going to cost you about probably $10 and a couple of hose clamps. And then if it takes an impact and it bends back, it's not going to cut through the hose, because a silicone hose is a lot more reinforced. It's going to save you a whole lot of grief, and you don't want to be out on the trail with the radiator all bent in and everything leaking everywhere. And make the hose quite long so it goes right over the hose here, so that if you do have to shorten the hose, you've got a little bit more to play with. You can see that I've got the clamp on quite a long way. Put as much hose on as there is as you can. So other than that, The rear fender, very easy to snap off if you're got riders that are tending to flip the bikes. Keep a few rear fenders in stock. Replace that hose, put a fan on it. We're running heated grips because we're up here in Canada. It's cold as fuck in the winter time, and heated grips are money. They really are. Other than that, the bike's better than it ever has been. So the 2021 is an improvement over the 2020. It's not a lot. It's just that one little thing on the tuning that makes it a little bit better, and a slightly more, just sort of plusher suspension. As I say, need to check the clickers to make sure it is actually different in the valving, but it does seem to be plusher right through the stroke, which is quite nice. So other than that, folks, 2021 KTM 300 XC.